share my screen. Let's see. Do you all see the presentation?
Yes.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our general body meeting number 3. For today's icebreaker, if we could just quickly go through name, major, year, and then our question for today is, would you rather be able to run at 100 miles per hour or fly at 10 miles an hour? And then you can either explain why or where would you go with that ability? So I'll just go first. My name is Michaela. I'm a civil engineering major, and this is my 2nd year. And I think I would rather be able to fly because I was talking with Megan earlier. I think I would go to the Grand Canyon and just fly over it. And I think that would be really cool. So, Megan, do you want to go down the list of names? Because I can't talk right now.
Yeah, I'll go. So I'm Megan. I'm a 3rd year mechanical engineering student. I was just thinking about this when you were talking, because you could still fly on an airplane and stuff, but then once you're there, you could just run around. So if you just got to Europe on a plane, because you can't run on water, then you could just run around Europe and not have to pay again. And 100, that's really fast. So I vote run at 100 miles an hour, unless you get super winded, in which case I'll go with flying. I'm very wishy-washy.
Keep a poll of who says what. We're gonna see.
Okay, keep that poll. We'll go down the list. So Abigail, how do you feel about this? And what is your name and major and year?
Hi, sorry, I'm driving home from work right now, but I'm Abby. I'm a mechanical engineering major, and I'm a 3rd year. And I think I'd rather run at 100 miles per hour because I would be able to go home on the weekends faster. So that's my answer.
I like it. All right, Anna, who are you?
Hi, I'm Anna. I'm a 2nd year civil engineering student, and I think I'd rather fly as well, just so I don't have to pay for plane tickets and stuff and travel around.
Well, Michaela and I just did some math. I want you guys to consider this, okay? So if Michaela wanted to fly to the Grand Canyon at 10 miles an hour, it would take her 19 point whatever days.
No, that was to get to Hawaii.
Oh, to get to Hawaii, sorry.
Yeah.
So knowing that it could take days to get somewhere instead of buying a plane ticket, I just want you to consider that.
Megan, stop trying to get people on your team.
Listen! I just wanted people to know the information. Brooklyn, how do you feel about this matter?
Hi, I'm Brooklyn. I'm a 1st year biochem major. I think I would rather fly because I think flying would just be so cool. You can already run. So just the ability to fly. I'll fly at 1 mile per hour.
I'm losing here. Chris?
Yeah, my name's Chris Tabarich. I'm a 4th year mechanical engineering major. And I would like to fly at 10 miles per hour. It would be so cool and convenient. I don't know if you would get tired flying. Do you get tired flying?
We could just assume that for neither of these you get tired.
Anyway, I don't know. You could hurt your legs. I don't know. But I would like to fly because it's cool, and I would just fly everywhere. Absolutely over the puddles. There was a lot of puddles.
That's innovative. I like it.
Oh my gosh, you could fly across Exchange Street, so you don't have to wait for the crosswalk.
There you go. Let's see. Erin, what about you?
My name's Erin, and I'm a 2nd year electrical engineering student, and I would definitely pick flying because if you could run that fast, I bet you'd crash into a bunch of cars and a bunch of people, and you'd be going so fast, and they'd be really bad crashes.
Oh, I didn't think about that. Erin, why didn't you say something earlier? I changed my mind. I'll fly. Haley?
Hi, I'm Haley. I'm a first year mechanical engineering student and I want to run fast. So that's mine, just so I can get places way quicker.
Oh. See, okay, I'm very wishy-washy. We'll be on a team together. We'll run places.
Oh my gosh, Megan, I can't keep writing.
You know what, Michaela? We'll figure it out. Don't worry. We'll take a poll at the end. Not really. Hannah?
Hello, I'm Hannah. I'm a senior chemical engineering student, and I would choose to fly, I think, just for exploration purposes and like going on adventures.
That would be fun. Both are so fun. How about Isabel?
She said in the chat her mic doesn't work.
Oh, you want to type in the chat and then I'll read it off? She'd run! Guys, I've got a runner. All right. And she's a first year mechanical engineer, Isabel. My participants list. Okay, hold on. Jacob.
Hey, I am Jacob. I am a fourth year mechanical engineering major, and I would run. Just because I feel like I always think like, man, I wish I could get there faster, not, man, I wish I could just fly up there.
Hey, guys, the runners are catching up.
All right, we just need the next couple people. All right, Keith.
Hi, I'm Keith. Last year, electrical engineering student. I would fly because it would be cool and peaceful because there wouldn't be very much traffic up there. Down here, there's just too much clutter.
That's fair. Lordy.
Hi, I'm Lordy. I am a fourth year accounting major, and I would run because I've been watching WandaVision, Quicksilver's in it, Speed is in it, and I just watched Days of Future Past again, and his scenes are so cool in that movie, so definitely would run.
All right, Molly.
Hi, I'm Molly. I'm a fifth year computer engineer, and I would pick flying just so that you could like fly to the top of mountains really quick and just be at the top of a hike.
There you go. And then Liz, do you want to answer our icebreaker?
Sure, I'd love to. So I'm Liz. I'm here to present. I'm from the Counseling and Testing Center. I'm a psychology doctoral intern. So I guess technically I'm in my 6th year of my grad program. And we did a similar question about this recently in our staff. And I picked flying because I would like to be more mindful in my trips. I feel like part of me wants to get places fast, but I also think I want to work on being able to enjoy the world around me more. So I think that's why I picked flying.
Nice.
All right.
Did we miss anybody? I don't think so. All right, Michaela.
Okay, the poll results are in. It was 9-6 flying. So
We'll get them next time, guys.
all right. So if you are not on Slack, please get on Slack. That's where we do all of our communication. Not all of it, but a good majority of it. And it's where we have different channels for our project teams. If you need help getting on Slack, feel free to message me or one of the other officers. We are selling t-shirts. You can buy them on our website, and it's linked there. And they're $12, and they're super cute and comfy. And then also, if you would like to connect with us on LinkedIn, please feel free to do so. We are trying to make a database of sustainable companies. So if you're looking for a co-op or a full-time position, it might be a little bit easier for you to find a sustainable company. So please feel free to connect. And then our project updates. So we'll start with the education team, Megan.
Hello, I'm the project team education team leader. We do K-12 presentations, so we're shooting for Earth Day this year to do some cool presentations. We're wrapping up getting those presentations done right now. We're really excited to start, getting some scripts ready and recording and reaching out to some teachers. So if you know someone who works at a school and would be like, yes, I want some, free STEM presentations to bring the field trip to me, then just let me know and let them know, and I'll get a form out soon for that. So yeah, if you're interested, we do independent and group projects. Feel free to email me or Slack message me, but we meet on 6:30 at 6:30 on Wednesdays. So if you're interested, feel free to come by after this meeting.
All right. ZPP, Nor is not here, and I don't think Kayla is here either, but they have made a lot of progress. We are actually in the process of moving them into a bigger room where they can actually operate the equipment for it. So I know that they have accomplished the shredder stand, and they're working on the shredder right now. So if you're interested in ZPP, feel free to contact Nor, or you can contact me and I will get you where you need to go. And I think, they meet Thursdays at 5. And they are doing some in-person meetings. Of course, it's limited, but if you're interested in having like a hands-on experience, it's a great project to be part of. Bike Power, Anna, if you want to present.
So hi, I'm Anna, co-leader of Bike Power, and we are using the mechanical energy from the pedaling of a bike to power certain technology that we are adding, and we are currently working on attaching the generator to the bike and making it waterproof. If you are interested, let me know, because our meeting time is somewhat changing between Monday and Thursday depending on when we are able to meet in person. So you can just shoot either Megan or I an email.
All right. And last but not least, wind turbine.
Hey, I'm Jacob, the project leader of Wind Turbine. So we're just trying to create a wind turbine that will harness the power of wind. This is a project that's kind of in tandem with the educational team. We are currently in the design phase. We actually have a first draft of the blades we're going to use up and running, so that's something we've done recently. We're also partnering with a senior design team that is going to use the power we create and make hydrogen fuel cells from it. So that's kind of like an extra thing we're working on. That's actually been pretty interesting. And if you're interested, feel free to contact me.
They also just got a grant from ESW HQ, so it's super exciting, and we're really excited to see where this project goes. And just so quickly, some other opportunities. So we are doing a Friday social hour. It's held at 6 p.m. on Fridays. We will not be hosting it the week that we have our general body meetings, though, just because that's kind of a lot to all do in one week. But everyone is welcome, so please bring your friends. Sometimes we just talk. If enough people are there, we try to play games. It's been a lot of fun. So feel free to stop by. And if you are interested in this, but that time doesn't work for you, there's a link. I will send out these slides at the end of this meeting so that you can click on all these links.
I also just threw it in the chat, so feel free to fill that out soon. And then we can schedule around this. So we just want to get as many people there as possible.
Yeah,
to have
but it's a fun time.
Some game nights. It'll be fun.
Right. Another opportunity that's coming up. So the ESW Global Conference is coming up, and it's going to be the week of Earth Week. It's held April 22nd through the 24th. The student registration fee is $40, but if you're experiencing financial difficulties, I believe we have a form that you can fill out. We might be able to provide like a scholarship, or we can find a sponsor for you. So, yeah. And then we also have a mentorship program. If you'd like to receive advice from upper class about taxes, plans, anything about that, find the link at the bottom of all of our emails. And these are our next general body meetings. Just so you guys are aware, next general body meeting, we're going to be doing a trivia night. So if you have any, like a topic suggestion that you want to do, please feel free to email one of the officers and we will try to make that happen. And without further ado, I present our speaker today, Liz Emley. Liz earned a bachelor's in psychology from Ohio University, and she's now completing her clinical psych PhD from Bowling Green. And she is a psychology intern at our counseling and testing center. And she also has some environmental studies under her belt. So Liz, I don't know if you have a presentation and you want to share your screen, but I'll stop sharing mine.
Yes, I do have one. So yes, I will do that. Thank you for the introduction. Is this looking good and moving? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, so thank you for having me. I am really excited to be here. When they reached out about this as a topic, I immediately jumped on it because I just have a really personal interest in environmental sustainability. And yeah, I did some coursework in undergrad kind of on the side. And then also for my my master's thesis, I did a study on the link between involvement in social movements like environmental sustainability and health outcomes. So I'm trying to find ways to incorporate this topic into the work I do as a psychologist or budding psychologist. And so I think this is a really, really cool, interesting topic and something that I think is going to become more and more prevalent in the work that we do in mental health as the world continues the way it's going. So yeah, I'm really excited to just kind of help talk through some terminology and then also more kind of focused on what can we do with the difficulties that we experience related to climate change. So I don't want to spend a ton of time on the facts because obviously you all are very familiar. And I think also it's definitely not my area of expertise. But I think I guess my first thought is sort of along the lines of what we are inundated with kind of on a daily basis, especially, for those of us who are more kind of sustainability focused. It's something that we care about. It's something that we really value. And so there's a lot of things in the world that can trigger a lot of feelings and, thoughts and fears about this kind of stuff. So obviously there's a lot just in general about climate change, but I think even news we see on, things like racism or classism, like how those things are very intricately linked with sustainability issues. Or, when I see someone in my family posting about how climate change isn't real because it's cold in Texas, things that just kind of hit you in the face and just, definitely for me causes a feeling of just sort of doom. How are we going to handle this? What are we doing? It feels very complicated and so systemic and difficult to address. So yeah, just to kind of validate that this is a really difficult experience. And I think kind of along those lines, talking about kind of where the responsibility lies, I think is important because just some EPA stats, we know that a vast majority or a large proportion of some of the climate change impacts we see come from corporations and, the gas and the fossil fuel industry. And so I think kind of good and bad, it can take some of the personal responsibility off. Okay, it's not just me, and if I don't recycle my cat's, wet food tin today, it's not going to make a huge difference. Which can be helpful to take off some of that responsibility, but can also be really stressful because then it's what can we really do about it? So I guess I just wanted to open up for a second to see what do people think about just how inundated we are with this information? What is it like to kind of feel, see these things on a daily basis? Just any reactions or thoughts?
I feel especially over Corona, it got really overwhelming because you couldn't stop yourself from doom scrolling, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's a lot of extra stuff that makes life really more stressful right now, but also it's a lot easier to just be on our phones and like looking through the news and, like you said, kind of doom scrolling. A lot more time to do that. Mm-hmm.
I find it difficult to deal with the fact that I know a lot of highly educated people that are climate change deniers, and I don't understand how they can not believe in climate change when they are educated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. I think, and not even just with climate change, but like a lot of other, like, vaccination, like a lot of other, I think, topics like this where there's this disconnect between being educated and knowledgeable, but then in some areas not really having the full understanding. Yeah, it is kind of mind-boggling, to say the least. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you both. So the first thing I wanted to talk a little bit more about is just some terminology, because these are actually terms that I haven't been like, I guess in the psychology world, it's not things that we talk about a lot, which I think is a whole issue of itself, but just to kind of help understand what some of these terms mean and how they might be related to some experiences that you have. So in the mental health world, we understand anxiety as being an experience of fear of a potential or anticipated threat. So, when you think of the fight or flight response, there's that stress response we have that makes sense. Like if, you're running from a tiger, you need to be fearful because you're running for your life or fighting for your life. Versus anxiety is more of this fear of something that maybe is not directly threatening your survival or your well-being, but could. So thinking about, a test that's coming up and worried about whether or not you're going to do well. Or having to have a difficult conversation with somebody that you need to have and kind of preparing for that. So kind of anxiety in that sense of something could happen. And then another kind of, I think of it sort of as like on the other end of the spectrum is depression, which is a mood that's very like low, dysthymic, we would say, with experiences of hopelessness and helplessness. So kind of feeling like things are too hard, too overwhelming, kind of takes a lot of energy out of us. And so then with both of those related to sustainability, defined as anxiety or eco-anxiety is the chronic fear of the potential ecological and environmental disaster that climate change is creating. So thinking about it with, anxiety, it's just this fear of what's going to happen, what are the consequences going to be, and some things we can kind of predict, and so it's a matter of just kind of waiting for them to happen, waiting for that downfall can be really stressful. And then on the other end of that spectrum, more of the eco-depression, so just feeling really overwhelmed by the potential consequences of climate change. So just feeling like it's too much to handle, what's the point? Or maybe some like helplessness to be able to do anything about it. So a little bit on the consequences. So, it's not just necessarily anxiety and depression, but what are some other things that come with this? So we know that there can be a range of other emotions. So feeling really angry, maybe really guilty about personal behavior, a sense of just powerlessness, physical exhaustion, and then even grief and loss are associated with these kinds of things. The fear or the loss of maybe being able to do certain things, or the anticipated loss of like a kind of future that we might want to see for ourselves or for our children. Compassion fatigue is one that I think is really just really interesting, because oftentimes we think of this in association with like being in a helping profession. So, like as a therapist or as a just a physician, as someone who is an advocate for someone who's gone through trauma. It kind of makes sense, like that experience of just as we work with people who have been through really difficult things, that there can be a sense of kind of secondary trauma and just experiencing that kind of along with them with that empathy, and that can be really tiring. And I think it also can come up in this way. Anything where there's a social movement or some social action that we're involved in, so, sustainability, but could also be, Black Lives Matter, any social movement where the main underpinning or value of it is to help people and wanting to see people thrive and to feel like, and to see people struggling because of such social systemic problems is really exhausting. And then kind of some physical symptoms. So a lot of these things and just kind of anxiety in general often come with just stress. So again, that fight or flight response, that stress response that our body generates in situations where we're feeling nervous. There's, a lot of increase in like cortisol or stress hormones, which can impact immune functioning, and a lot of other chronic illnesses as well. And then the piece that will tie into kind of what do we do with this is the action tendencies. So, when we think about anxiety and depression, a lot of times those emotions kind of cause us to want to behave in a certain way. And so, for example, with anxiety, a lot of times the action tendency or what our body kind of tries to get us to do is avoid. So like if I'm anxious about, this test, maybe I'm just going to avoid studying at all so I don't have to think about it. Or with depression, maybe withdraw. So feeling, really low, really down. The easiest thing to do is just withdraw from people, from activities. And obviously these things can kind of perpetuate a vicious cycle. So if you're, anxious about something, but you avoid it, you're not really doing anything to solve the problem, and kind of do what you need to do to make steps forward. I guess any reactions or thoughts to some of this stuff, like maybe personal experiences that really resonate with you? Okay. So next, we'll talk a little bit more about kind of what do we do with all these difficult feelings and the stress we have from all of this. So kind of breaking it down into a few different areas. So we'll talk a little bit about goal setting, the behavior side of things, thinking errors, or just like kind of how we work with our thoughts, and then the idea of flourishing. So on the image on the right, kind of thinking about how the goal is to be in that tolerable, or what I would also call the growth zone. So kind of being in a space where we can feel stressed, but not so stressed that it's unhealthy, but also so not stressed that we're not doing anything to address the problem. So kind of finding that middle ground, and just the importance of behavior and action in general for things like anxiety. So the first one, goal setting. So this one's probably something that, we all have thought a lot about. What can I do in my own personal life to address this problem? So, things like taking public transportation or meeting virtually, which I think hopefully will become more of a common thing as we move forward out of the pandemic. Growing plants that can attract bees to kind of help with the bee population. Reduce, reuse, recycle, kind of the basics of that. I think public and political advocacy is one that obviously is a little bit harder and takes more effort, but can have more of a wide-ranging impact. So, voting, calling your Congress people when they're supporting legislation that's, either really helpful and you can support it, or really unhelpful and you can try to advocate against that. Doing things like that can have more of like a public impact. And then also, I think seeking social support. So, you're all in this group because you all have a common value and shared experience about what this is like. And so I think just the fact of reaching out to people who have a similar experience and kind of have similar concerns can oftentimes be really beneficial for the emotions that come with something like this, because it is so taxing and we kind of need people to help us carry that sometimes. Other things that you would add to this list, or things that you have been, kind of wanting to work on?
I think something that I just want to work on is talking to people about it. I get really bothered when I see people carrying that plastic water bottle, but I don't know if I necessarily am able to be like, oh, hey, you should use a reusable water bottle, and I know that not everyone is able to do that, but I want to be more outspoken.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd appreciate that. I think having difficult conversations is really, it can be intimidating. And I think also in the society we live in, where kind of how things are seen very political in some ways. And, you know, if you say something, is it just going to lead to a really unhealthy confrontation that's not actually going to make a difference? Is someone really going to be able to hear you? So I think things like that are very tricky, and there's a lot of kind of navigating boundaries around what's healthy for me, you know, what's maybe the most effective way I can manage the situation. But I think even like you said in that example of even just something smaller, like, hey, have you thought about using a reusable water bottle? Like maybe things like that, kind of working on how to just like try it to do it and see what happens. You know, kind of testing it on a safe person to see how that goes and kind of building up the confidence to do that. I think things like that could be helpful. Other thoughts or ideas?
Personally, I want to just get more educated and be more capable of talking to people about this, because I think for me, I kind of get nervous about talking to people if I don't feel like I have a really good grip on things going on. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's kind of the big ticket for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you kind of feel like you have to be an expert to like prove your point and get someone to like see your side. Mm-hmm. Yeah, which I think in some ways obviously is like, it's coming from a good place. Like you want to be educated about something that you're really like advocating for. But also kind of on the other end, like you can only be so knowledgeable. And at a certain point, maybe it's more reflective of like the person you're talking to. And what does it mean if they're not willing to hear you out, even if you don't have all the answers? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like, you know, you're both bringing up this theme of like, how do we talk to other people? Because I think that is sort of the challenge is when, you know, like people in this group or people that are in our lives that we know are more sustainability minded, it's like, okay, well, they've kind of got it. But then it's like, how do you talk to people kind of almost, yeah, on the other side of the aisle, or people who don't really, you know, even believe that it's real potentially. So it is really challenging. One of the classes I took that was part of what we talked about was like, kind of preparing the evidence for yourself. And I remember coming away from that feeling like I had a good sense, but then I didn't actually know how to do it. And I think that just shows like, you know, even professors in this topic, like it's just a human struggle is like, how do we help people on the other side, you know, hear our perspectives and yeah, kind of listen to what we have to say. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the next one is, I feel like, you know, thinking errors or just kind of working with our thoughts. So this idea is more focused on like how to just cope with the anxiety, like the thought-specific anxiety that comes up with these topics. So recognizing and trying to modify those errors to improve your emotional experiences and address behavioral barriers. So, you know, again, kind of going back to the action tendency of anxiety and depression is something related to not addressing it. So whether it's avoiding it or withdrawing from situations or people, trying to find ways to manage the thoughts sometimes can be a helpful way to deal with the behavioral barriers. So maybe even in the example of how do I reach out to this person and talk about this topic that I know I want to talk about with them. Maybe part of it is working with your thoughts a little bit more to get a better handle on like how you want to address that. And I think the biggest way I try to frame this is like, what's a helpful thought? So, you know, some of the examples on the right talk about like, you know, just kind of worst case scenario, you know, mind reading, like assuming that, you know, people don't care, focusing on the negative, generalizing or magnifying. So like, you know, taking a situation and kind of blowing it up into really intense proportions. So I guess, you know, briefly thinking about that and looking through that, what are some thoughts that come up for people that feel really like kind of what keep them stuck maybe from talking to people or doing things that could address the issues?
I feel like the discounting the positive is a big thing because like especially with sustainability, like the people you see online are kind of all like these all or nothing people, but like most people don't have the ability to do that. So even if you are like using a reusable water bottle, you're like, well, I used plastic earlier today, so like that means I'm not doing anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and I think it comes from a good place. Like, the reason that we are hard on ourselves is because we think that, if we just, if we're hard on ourselves, or we can like really focus on like the things we need to fix, then it'll make everything better. But a lot of the times it just makes us feel worse. And then we maybe avoid more, or just have that guilt that we carry around that's not helpful in making larger changes. So I think that's a really good example. Yeah, just being able to kind of be kinder to ourselves and like appreciate, like, even though it's small, like I am doing things, and if I didn't use the reusable bottle this time, that'd be one extra bottle, like every small activity can make a difference if there are enough of them. So I think that's a good example. Other thoughts or ideas on kind of where you get stuck?
I think blame is a big one, because for me, my thought process is like, well, even if I use a reusable straw or a reusable water bottle, but I go to the store and there's still the same amount being produced. Like there's always plastic water bottles and straws on the shelves. So even if I try to do my part, like people are still producing these things. And I guess that's like blaming big businesses and people like that for making that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. And which I think it's interesting. I was talking about this with my friends in terms of like the food industry, and like, trying to be vegetarian, and how, but they're still, or like the example of milk. Like I've read that there are a lot of people shifting to using non-dairy milk, which is ideally, in a functioning capitalist society, is going to make it so that milk, like, cow's milk is produced less. But part of the problem is that when the government is involved in like, providing a bunch of money to dairies to kind of compensate for that, it doesn't really make a difference. So, and I think that is kind of, it's just hard, because it's like, yeah, you can't really make what your small behavior in that way isn't changing the social structure. But I think even with that, then it's like, okay, well, the problem is with lobbying and, where money is allocated in a government. And maybe that's an area to focus a little bit more attention if possible, like, contacting politicians or, things like that. So I agree. It's really, really hard with so many different systems that kind of feel like setting us up to fail. Mm-hmm.
I think that labeling is kind of an issue. You made me think of it when you were talking about milk, because like if a bunch of environmentalists are all like, milk is terrible for the environment, we need to boycott milk, well, then you're never going to get the people, like the farmers that produce that milk, to come onto our side, because they're like, well, you don't like me, And so like I think when we label like, oh, well, that's just bad, like we need to like, whether you want to say like, oh, we need to cancel that, or it just creates like this kind of this rift, versus like the question maybe should be like, how can we make dairy farming more eco-friendly? Like, is there a way to find like a realistic but also like helpful middle point?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I appreciate you said that, because I think, and kind of tying that with the blame piece too, I think the reason that those thoughts are just maybe not always helpful is because it kind of, creates this othering of people. And ultimately that's not going to help us get closer to the goal. And I think you're right that part of it is like, when we have those really kind of extreme thoughts, it just kind of keeps us stuck in our own bubble. And kind of being able to be aware of like, okay, if my ultimate goal is this, like what's a more collaborative way to try to get there? Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all. I appreciated that. And then the last piece that some of the literature calls flourishing, I think of it as just kind of finding like focusing on more of like the positives, like the strengths, the values, kind of accepting our experiences. So in this example, it talks about we're kind of helping to work through when we have a specific goal and we have these anxious thoughts, what's a different way to think about it that might help me work towards the actual goal versus getting stuck in my anxiety. So if a goal is to, try to be more proactive instead of being procrastinating, if an anxious thought is like, we're doing our best, but it's not enough, kind of having that more like strengths-based thought, which is, what we're doing is a start. We're all making a contribution to reducing our carbon footprint, and I can encourage people to continue doing these things. So just kind of thinking through like, what are things that I can try to remind myself in this moment to help me get out of where I'm stuck? Kind of sort of like taking a step back and thinking like, okay, like it feels really awful and it is really awful. And I can also reflect on like, what are the strengths I have? Where am I making a difference already? Where is the power that I hold that I can try to harness with people in my life or with the systems I'm within? Being able to remind yourself like, okay, my value is to be a sustainable person, and I don't have to be perfect, but I can still do things that help me live in line with that value. And then also I think kind of that acceptance piece, like, it's not, these things are hard and we can't be perfect. And so part of it is just recognizing we need to give ourselves a little slack sometimes, because ultimately, if we don't, that's what's going to lead to that compassion fatigue and that burnout, and then we're not going to be able to be productive people / sustainability advocates. I wanted to kind of end on this quote. This is a quote from one of my favorite books by David Mitchell. He wrote Cloud Atlas. For me, it really just speaks to what we've been talking about, that, we want to be able to change the world. And I think to do that, we really have to say, like, what are the small things that I can do in my own life to cause those ripples and make those small changes within my own social circles, that will ultimately, like, that's how social movements happen. They start small, but they make a huge difference if they get out far enough and wide enough and are done in the right ways. And so I think just kind of being able to reflect on that's kind of where we are, and maybe that's where we need to be. That's kind of where a lot of other people have been, and things worked out and went okay. And, it takes fighting, but it's kind of worth it to go through that. And then just a couple of resources on the Counseling and Testing Center. Like I mentioned, I think this topic specifically, we don't really get trained on, but I know, some people in my friend group who have similar concerns, like they've talked about going to a therapist, and like, it's something that they wanted to talk about. And I think it's, something that maybe people aren't always trained specifically in, but our job is to be very like empathic and to be very, open and listen and hear perspectives. So I think, this is something that we are very capable of working with people on, and just obviously general anxiety, depression, other kinds of problems. So just know that we're here if you need us. And that's it. So any, questions or thoughts at the moment? Okay.
You guys can also type questions in the chat if you don't want to say them, and I can read them for you.
That's true.
But not seeing any questions. Liz, thank you so much for the presentation. I think that it was just a really nice discussion between all of us, and just thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you all for participating. It was I enjoyed it. I'm putting my email in the chat in case people do have questions, but yeah. Oh, I also just wanted to say you all seem very organized, and like you're doing really cool things. When I was in a sustainability group in undergrad, we did like dorm programming, which was fun, but I think it's really cool that you guys are like a, engineer, like science focused group. It seems like you're doing a lot of really cool stuff, so good for you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, well, take care.
Right.
Thank you.
You guys are free to leave, or you can stick around if you have a question or something.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That went well.
Yeah, do you want to stop the recording?
Yeah.